Polly Nichols was murdered on the 31st of August 1888, and on that particular day she'd had 3 customers. But she'd spent the money on gin. So when she turned up at the lodging house to get a bed for the night, not only was she drunk, but she didn't have any money for a bed. But she felt pretty confident about getting a 4th customer because she thought she looked particularly attractive. And the reason she thought she looked so attractive was because she was wearing a new hat. I mean, she was drunk, she got 5 front teeth missing, but she was wearing this new hat. And the last words of the lodging house keeper were, "See what a jolly bonnet I'm wearing."
August the 31st, 1888 was the first Ripper murder. Mary Ann Nichols, known as Polly, a streetwalker in her early 40s, was found dead in Bucks Row, Whitechapel, at approximately 3:45 in the morning. She had been dead approximately 20 minutes when she was found, and in the mortuary they discovered that not only had her throat been cut, but there was a great gash in her abdomen. On the 8th of September 1888, at 10 to 6 in the morning, the second victim was found. She had been kicked out of her nearby lodging house at midnight for not having the money she needed to pay for her bed. She expected to earn it, but clearly didn't find it, as she was last seen alive at 5:15, negotiating with a client who was probably Jack the Ripper on the pavement outside number 29 Hanbury Street. Her throat had been cut, she had been savagely mutilated, disemboweled, and her uterus taken away.
After 2 ghastly murders, many concerned citizens wrote letters to Scotland Yard suggesting ways to catch the murderer. The most popular idea was to have armed police pose as prostitutes. Then, on September 29, a note arrived, purportedly from the killer himself. The signature was brilliant.
"Dear boss, I keep on hearing the police have caught me, but they won't fix me just yet. That joke about the leather apron gave me real fits. I'm down on oars and I shan't quit ripping them till I do get buckled."
Scotland Yard was now very fearful that the mysterious Whitechapel fiend would soon strike again.
"My knife's so nice and sharp, I want to get to work right away if I get the chance. Yours truly, Jack the Ripper."
The name, Jack the Ripper, probably invented by a journalist, certainly first appearing in the Dear Boss letter, but what a name for an undiscovered ghoul.
Charles Warren, head of Scotland Yard, was under siege. The killer was still at large. His superiors were furious, and the public had no confidence in him. The radical press wanted him out.
The first victim that night was Elizabeth Stride, nicknamed Long Liz. She had been seen hustling for trade up and down a little road called Berners Street in the East End during the evening from 11 p.m. Her body was found at about 1 o'clock in Dutfield's Yard, a little opening off Berners Street. Her throat had been cut, but she'd not been mutilated, and it is thought that the Ripper may have been frightened off by hearing Deemschutz's Pony and Trap approaching.
Murder slipped out from behind the gateway, headed west, and crossed the invisible boundary. No big wall or ditch to jump, it's just crossing from one side of the street to the other. Crosses from Scotland Yard territory into the city. It is there, then, he picks up the second prostitute on that night, a prostitute called Catherine Eddowes.
Night, old cock.
The second murder on the night of the double murders was that of Catherine Eddowes. Her body was found at about 1:45 in Mitre Square in the City of London. She had been appallingly mutilated, her throat cut, V's cut in her cheeks, pointing up to the eyes, her eyelids nicked through, the tip of her nose cut off, and the usual ripping and abdominal mutilation, with her uterus and one kidney taken away by the murder.
Now, nobody has seen or heard a thing. Not the policeman on the beat, the policeman and his family in the house opposite, the night porter with the door partly open. They didn't actually have to see the square or be present on it, because Mitre Square had an echo on it. There was a feeling that what happened to these women deserved to happen to them. The average Victorian regarded a prostitute as a gay woman. Now, they use the word gay not in the sense that we use it today as meaning homosexual. They use the word gay as meaning nymphomania. Prostitutes were all nymphomaniacs. That was why they were prostitutes. Therefore, they were on the streets for their pleasure. The fact that they were there out of sheer economic desperation and necessity is rarely considered. Therefore, they're on the streets for their pleasure. The wages of sin is death. And therefore, what happened to them deserved to happen. So why waste too much time over these women? It's another piece of street cleaning.
George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilante Committee, received a letter posted from hell, probably from the real killer. The syntax was clearly Irish, and the envelope contained parts of a human kidney.
Mr. Lusk, sir, I send you half a kidney I took from one woman, preserved it for you. T'other piece I fried and ate it. Was very nice. I may send you the bloody knife that took it out, if you'll only wait a while longer. Catch me when you can, Mr. Lusk.
A murdering fiend called Jack the Ripper had killed 4 women. How many more would die before he was through?
It escalates. It constantly escalates. And we see this more clearly probably in the Ripper case than in anything else. The constant escalation of mutilation.
You've got the murderer. He's now working to some timetable of his own. It goes like this. 31st of August, he kills Polly Nichols. 8th of September, he kills Annie Chapman. 30th of September is a double event. He kills Stride and Eddowes. 8th of October, nothing happens. 30th of October, nothing happens. The night of the 8th, 9th of November, he meets his 5th and final victim. And this is this young prostitute called Mary Kelly. On the night of the 8th, 9th of November, it's rainy, she's out on the street, she's looking for customers. She picks one up around about midnight, takes him back to her room, and one of the other prostitutes sees her drawing the curtains of her room, and as she did so, Kelly is singing a musical song. It was only a violet I plucked from my mother's grave. Around about 3:30 in the morning, she picks up the Ripper. Some people living in Miller's Court hear a faint cry of murder. It's almost certain that it was at that point that the Ripper, lying on the bed beside Mary Kelly, throws the sheet over her head and makes his first thrust through the sheet with a knife. He has several hours to work over.
She had been absolutely savagely mutilated, almost cut to pieces, her abdomen entirely emptied and the contents left scattered around on the bed beside her. Pieces of flesh had been left on a table beside the bed. Her heart had been extracted from her thorax, and it is possible, from the way the doctor described this, that that was taken away.
There is the photograph of the murder. She's lying on the bed facing the window. You can just see the puff sleeves of her chemise. This is what confronts the police when they get there to begin the investigation.
News of Mary Kelly's savage death stunned the world.
Eine furchtbare Morde in London, in Whitechapel. Das ganze
Nothing in the history of American crime can, for special horror, be said to outmatch eat and butcher.
The horrendous murder of Mary Kelly alarmed Buckingham Palace and greatly distressed Queen Victoria. She promptly telegrammed her Prime Minister with an urgent message. This new, most ghastly murder shows the absolute necessity for some very decided action. All the courts must be lit and our detectives improved. Sir Charles Warren, the beleaguered head of Scotland Yard, was already on his way out. The 5th Ripper murder sealed his fate, and he resigned.
That must have been another great high for him. I did all this. I caused this sensation. It's my doing. And again, it feeds the vanity and the arrogance.
5 women had been brutally killed, and still nobody could name the man who had committed the crimes. 4 years later, in 1892, the file was closed on Jack the Ripper.